Hi, I'm Jess. I'm an alcoholic. Maybe we don't need the microphone. Depends on how loud I laugh. Welcome to the people that raised their hands, and I'm really glad that you're here. This thing doesn't work if we don't give it away, so it's brave to raise your hand. I didn't for a bit, and anyway, I'm glad to be here. I have to tell you, the worst part about this right now is that I can hear myself through this microphone. I have been panicked about this the whole time, and I was asked a very long time ago to speak, and it's been very uncomfortable 3 months, okay? I'm a goddamn sick drunk, and all I think about is myself anyway, and then you ask me to speak, and I'm like, oh, Jesus. Anyway, so if I get distracted by finally hearing the voices from my head out loud, just like, bring me back. Because when I can hear myself, it's a little weird. Anyway. I just want to first say thank you for asking me. This is such a pleasure to be able to be here. I'm very uncomfortable to do this, and it makes me really nervous, and but I am grateful to be able to give this thing back because I've been able to be free from alcohol and drugs now for 2 days ago, 7 years. So, I also want to say thank you to my mom. She's taking care of my special needs kid back at home, and so I'm really grateful for her, and I'm going to start my story the way she always told me my story started. Driving in our station wagon on my birthday every year, she'd always say, "It was a dark and stormy night." And I was like, Jesus, Mom. So dramatic. So I'm a bit dramatic. And it was dark and stormy today, and I was like, how fitting. Even God understands my drama. And it is true, even God understands me, and I'm grateful for that. So yeah, my story. It's mine, and I just really hope that you hear something that resonates with you. And if you don't, I'm really sorry, and you can keep coming back, because there's a lot of us here. And a lot of good people that I've listened to share their stories to and help me in my journey. So it was a dark and stormy night a long time ago, and I was born. And my parents were married and had 5 of us kids, and then my dad was military, and they got divorced, and and during that time, like, I just remember there was a woman that I heard speak when I was listening to a speaker tape early on in recovery, and she finally shared my story, and that's why I say keep coming and keep listening, because something someday will touch you, I hope. But she said stuff that just made me finally feel free. She talked about being in elementary school and being terrified, and that is totally my story. I remember showing up to kindergarten and like hiding behind my mom, you know, because I just was so afraid of being seen, and that has been my whole journey, you know. I've been a terrified individual and really worried about what you think of me. So if you don't like it, please don't tell me. But I remember as early, you know, very early childhood that I was very scared all the time, you know. I also remember when I was like around 7 seemed to be like the number for me when I started getting a little crazy, because I remember like setting a field on fire, you know. I just wanted to see it burn, and I was like, whoa, that's a little bit bigger than I thought, and ran and hid, you know, and all the fire trucks came. The best part about this story is I was telling my family about it, we were talking about it, and my brother looks over at me, this was just a couple of years ago, and he's like, you set the fire? I thought I set the fire. And I was like, oh, didn't want to tell you that, I guess. But and then there was no social media back then in the 80s. Yes, I know I look quite young for my age, but there was no like stuff that I was watching on TV. And I remember very vividly running in the kitchen with this big butcher knife and just yelling to my sister that I was going to cut myself, because like I just wanted the pain to stop, you know. And I was very young feeling like that. I thought because my hair was curly and nobody else's hair was curly at the time that I was adopted, you know. Like I just thought, I don't fit here. I just have never fit, you know. And Anyway, so it was just a really uncomfortable childhood, and my mom is very kind and loving, and I, have no reason to blame my family. We did have a lot of stuff going on. My family is very sick and very affected by alcoholism. It is definitely a family disease in my family, and so there was just a lot of chaos. A lot of the time, my parents ended up remarrying each other, and we moved down to St. George. That was even more confusing. I was like, probably didn't like him, No, that's not true. My mom was obsessed with him and still. But anyway, we moved down to St. George, and I still was terrified at school. I would go to school, and I would really put on this front because I didn't know how else to behave, And my family moved down there, and it was like Hogue Central. There was scratch that. Can't know my name. Anyway, because I expect to tell the truth here, and if I call bullshit, I have, people are going to tell me when I'm not telling the truth. Funny thing about the truth is, I'll get to that later. Anyway, there was a brother on each block, and there was a lot of us, and I was at the end of the group of kids, and by the time I got to junior high, I remember showing up, and they would be like, oh, you're one of those kids, and I was just horrified that they even knew who I was. I just wanted to not exist and hide, and they were not like that. All of my siblings and cousins, and we had cousins and cousins and cousins, and they were always getting in trouble, and I just remember thinking, well, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want them to see me. And so I did this pivot and did I just really tried hard in school and everything I did. I really wanted that pain to go away that had been with me since I was little. And so I just really got all the good grades and was very active. I ran for student body council, and I was just if these guys had any idea, I didn't know why I honestly didn't know why people were voting for me, and then that I actually won, I was shocked. I was I cannot believe this. I was walking around like this, in school, and my hair is so curly, I think, because of how this on the inside. It's gotten curlier over the years. But I just was so uncomfortable. And I tried to, I was raised in a very religious family. And I liked that because there was a set of rules, and I was if I follow those rules, then I'll get this result. And they promised those things, and I just, in my head, that was what was promised. And so I would really try to do all the things, and I just really threw myself into this, religion and the school functions, I had a good time. I did have a lot of fun. High school was a lot of fun. I did sports. I played water polo, and that was my jam, I had a good time, and but also at the same time was hiding this on the inside. If anybody knew what was really going on the inside, there's clearly something wrong with me, and it's dark and black, and you don't want anything to do with it, but I just really pretended to be something else. And then I graduated, and I just was really excited about the men at a really young age. And luckily for me, around here, they get married really young, So I was all about it. I was that will make me feel better, I'm sure of it, And I've had to try it a few times to figure that out. I am not a quick learner. When they talk about sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, I am the slow kind. It takes me a very long time to get this thing, and I did. I tried getting married a few times. I tried it different ways. I went to Vegas one time, and Elvis did not marry us. That was a little disappointing. But, there was something wrong with me, and I knew it, and I thought that would fix me. And I got married, and I had this kid, and he came too soon, and it was pretty traumatic. He came 3 months too soon. He was 2 pounds. He stayed in the ICU up at Primaries for almost a year. And I would watch that kid just, not do well. I couldn't even touch him. I didn't hold him for like 4 months. Like, it was just a very awful, awful experience. And then they send you with this sick kid home. Here you go. And I found out I was pregnant for a second time, and while he was still in the NICU. And I was even more terrified because I never thought I would ever have another child again because I was so scared. And I was very young, and so I go home with this sick kid, and I'm pregnant, and I'm just like married to this person. And I just was like, clearly something's wrong with me. I still was able to hide stuff. I really tried to look good on the outside, and I was always assessing people, I was like, they look normal, they look right. I'm gonna try to do what they're doing, and I worked in medical stuff, and that looked right to me, and I'd put people on pedestals, and the marriage was just dissolving so quickly because I knew I shouldn't have even married him before we even got married, but there was the first man to show me some sort of attention, and then when he wants to say, let's get married, I'm like, sure, I had no self-respect, no self-esteem, and I was terrified. And anyway, there was a moment where I was sitting with him and his family, and because I was not allowed to go with my family, and people would come to visit me, and I would find out later that he would just send them away. I had no idea. So it was a very small world, which my brain already does anyway. When I'm not working a spiritual program, it gets very small. And I just remember looking around the room and just thinking, oh my God, my kids are gonna never know me if I stay in this relationship. They were really little at the time, and I was really young. And I finally was brave enough to leave that marriage. And then all of a sudden, I'm this young person with these 2 little boys and one that's very, very sick. And I watched him die. He just kept dying, but he keeps living too. Good news, he's almost 20, so I'm I know this sounds morbid and sad, but he's this tall, and he's the best kid ever, and he really wanted to be here tonight, but I think he would have tried to steal the show. So, and I would have been really nervous. I'm already nervous. Anyway, so I'm just with this sick kid, and I'm single, and so the next man that just came along and wanted to rescue me, I was sure, and I tend to make these decisions when I'm on Ambien in the hospital. When I got divorced, I have to go back just a little bit, because I got divorced, and I was working at the office, and thank God, because they prescribed me something that was alcohol in pill form. And I am so grateful for that now, because this is my story, this is my jam. This is where I found healing and hope and peace that I had looked for everywhere. And I remember getting that first prescription, and I was going to a barbecue, and I was young and hot, and I didn't have my kids with me, and it was my cousin and her husband and all of his friends, and I was terrified, much like I am tonight. And I remember having that alcohol in pill form, and I was finally alive. I just came alive. I could say everything that I wanted to say, and I was flirty and fun, I just thought I was the shiz. So, and I finally found that relief I had been looking for, and then I was really annoyed at myself that I didn't try it way sooner in life. It's that's so rude. But, so I was starting to start that road for me of taking stuff, and luckily for me, I worked somewhere where people would call in and ask for prescriptions early, and I knew they were lying, and I would just be listening to how they're asking, and I started keeping track, and I was well, I know I can't ask for it this many days in advance, and so I started doing all these calculations of what I can and cannot do and how it looks right still, and then I was still trying to pretend to be this maybe kind of religious, but maybe not, like, because it just looked right around here. And so I was like, just getting really, like, starting to really separate, Jess over in this area of her life, Jess in this area of her life, and yeah, I don't know where it's going with that. Hold, please. But yeah, they gave me the prescription, and then it was off to the races for me. And then it did not take me long to find myself in a lot of trouble. I started doing, I don't know what you guys did. I hear some of your stories, so I do know some of your stories. But I started taking, way too many, and then I started needing uppers and downers, and then I needed all the things, but I still had to look right, so I'd look right Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and then I'd come home and pretend to be a parent to these kids, and this kid's, like, dying all the time, and, like, the crazy part about this is, like, I have had to administer this kid thousands of doses of medicine through a feeding tube. Morning, night, morning, night, morning, night. If you want to talk about, like, things being redundant in your board in your sobriety, come talk to me, because I'm telling you, this is the most boring thing I could ever do. And he's going to be 20, and I've been doing this for 20 freaking years, and I was just like, oh my God. I don't know about you guys, but I don't like to be, like, kept contained. Like, I just want to be free. I want to go travel over here. I don't want to be here, And, like, I had to do these medicines, morning, night, because if I didn't give just one of those medicines, not in the morning or not in the night, he would go into these seizures and he would turn blue, and I'd have to call the ambulance, and I'd tell his doctor he's turning blue every time he's having these seizures, and she just kept disregarding it. And 3 years later, they finally do this study on him, and they back off just a little bit of his medicine, and he goes blue. And the doctor comes running in, and he's like, he's blue. And I'm like, no shit, Sherlock, I've been telling you that for like 3 effing years. And in the middle of all this that is happening, like, my alcoholism is just growing and growing and growing. And I'm getting married because I go to the hospital and I get bored, and so then I take things to make me feel better, and then I'm suddenly in Vegas, and that one turned out that he's gay, so he doesn't get to count in my count. And there was a time that my kid was having one of those seizures, and there's something about me in between 9 and 11 in the morning that I just want to be out, like, inebriated. I don't want to know what's going on. And I had gone to have mimosas because that looks really cool, and I need to look cool because I know that's going to fix me, And we had gone out to get mimosas early in the morning, and I had left my kids. They're little. Like, I don't know where my kids were a lot of the time. It's embarrassing to say that, but that's the kind of mom that I was, and that's what this disease did to me. And we get back, and he's completely blue in his bed and having seizures, and I'm just like drunk, and I have to call the paramedics, and that's me. Like, I just couldn't do life. I just was avoiding it at all costs, and just would numb out as much as I could, because there was still something wrong with me from when I was this little kid. I wanted to die. I was walking around with this butcher knife, threatening that I'm going to kill myself. And then I have this, like, way crazy situation with these boys, and I'm just resistant to be a mom, resistant to grow up. And, it was just so miserable. And I just kept trying all the things. I would church and not church. I would do men and not men. And I'd get a certain birth control that would work, and then I'd feel bad for having sex, and so then I'd go take the birth control out, and then I'd start having sex. Like, I was just, like, so crazy. And my house was a revolving door for men. Like, I just couldn't fix what was going on inside of me, and it was really painful. And I crossed lines. I remember when I crossed that line that it talks about in the big book, where we crossed this line, and I can't even remember the words right now, I'm sorry, because it's not there, but we crossed this line that we don't ever intend to cross, and there was stuff in my life that I swore to myself. I watched it in my childhood, and I was like, I will never be like that man, and I will never do those things. And then all of a sudden, I was doing those things to the people that I loved the most. I was spending time with people I shouldn't have been spending time with, and I was sleeping with people that I had no right to be sleeping with, and I started crossing those lines, and then the guilt came, and I was the mom that could not get out of bed. My kids were little, like these cuties that are here tonight, and they would run to show me like their little painting or whatever they were doing, and I would just be laying in bed because my head was 1,000 pounds and I couldn't get out of the bed. And somehow I still managed to morning, night. That kid did not die, and I'm very proud of that. So around no, it was before that. So one of the husbands was nice. Not my kid's dad. He's still an asshole, and I get to say that today. I don't have as much animosity towards him. This is the cool part about Alcoholics Anonymous for me, is that I realized, like, probably this year that I've been in this place, a position of neutrality that they talk about in the big book with alcohol. It has happened for, like, relationships like that, where this man has been nothing but a jerk to my boys and has nothing to do with them and has barely done anything to help. And I suddenly have this position of neutrality, like, it's just what it is, and the beautiful people that came into my life for my boys, and some of them are here in this room tonight. That makes me a little emotional too. Anyway, one of the ex-husbands was nice, and he was going to take my healthy kid. It was summertime, he was going to take him, and so I was going to drive the boys down and drop him off in Mesquite. And so I stayed up all night packing really meticulously and make sure I have my alcohol in pill form on board. And I stayed up all night packing. And I go in the morning to drive and get them, or I go to get like the car ready. I need to go get gas, whatever. So I'm driving to get gas, and I hit the median, and I call my dad, and I tell him, I don't know what happened, the tire's flat, I don't tell him that I hit the median, and he pays for the tire. I should probably pay him back. Sorry, Dad. Truth comes out. So I hit this median, I get the tire fixed, and so here's one time that this is like trying to be thwarted, and my grand sponsor talks about us getting here by seconds and inches, and I completely believe in that 120%. But I hit that, I get the tire fixed, I go back home, and I turn off the car, and I load everything in, and I load my boys in, and I got my buddies in the seat that are in the jar so I can make sure I have a good drive to Mesquite, and I go to turn on the car, and the car doesn't start. And I'm like, don't mind that. We're very resourceful, I'm going to figure it out. So I'm wandering the streets at like 8, 9 in the morning, and I'm knocking on all the doors. Can you help me get my car started? I don't know what's going on. And that car has never not started until that day, and it never had that problem again. Like, it's never happened before. So we get the car started, and I pull out, and I turn, and I hit some mailboxes and trash cans, and I also need to go pay them back. Sorry, truth is really coming out tonight. And I turn back around, and I make my 7-year-old get out and fix the trash cans, because that's the kind of person that I am. So I make him get out and fix the trash cans for me, and then we start driving, and not even 2 minutes later, I get pulled over, and this is where my two worlds collide. Even though I am pretending to look right and do all the things that are right and work 9 to 5 and show up for that job, and I don't know how very well I was showing up for that job. I'd be very curious to talk to them now. But I thought I was showing up really well, 9 to 5, and then I had this other side of me that was just wanted to be dark and nasty and do all the things. And I got pulled over, and they made me walk the sobriety whatever test, and I clearly didn't pass. And they handcuffed me in front of my babies, and I was mortified. I was like, how did I get here? Like, I remember being in that moment just thinking, like, how is this happening right now? And I remember seeing my 2 little babies' faces in the backseat of the car, and they let me call my mom, and her and my brother came and picked them up. And they took me, and I don't know. I think I don't really remember a ton of that. I just remember I went somewhere, they handprinted or did blood or whatever, and then I had fines, and I had to go to court. And my kid went home. He was supposed to be going to Mesquite, and the neighbors are like having a party, but they knew that he was going to be in Mesquite. And so my story really got ruined at this moment, because he got home and he went to the party, and they're like, why are you here? You're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be in Mesquite. And he says, oh, my mom got arrested. And thus was the beginning of the end for me. I was horrified. I had never behaved where it was so public for me, and it was at 9 in the morning, and it was in a dry city. Like, how do you get a DUI, at 9 a.m. in a dry city? I was like, I don't know how I'm here right now. I really didn't understand why I was in this situation. It really didn't cross my mind that I had a problem. I thought that alcoholics or drug addicts looked a lot different from me. In fact, I even remember dating a guy around that time of my life, and he was going to NA. And I remember, when you hear it for the first time, and it just the brakes screech, and you're just like, what? My brain completely stopped, probably for the first time in my life, and was like, what? Why would you even stop? I just had no idea why you would stop. It was very confusing for me. I just couldn't believe it. And it took me a few years to get there from that point. But I do remember that conversation with that guy. I had forgotten all about it until maybe a few years ago, and I was like, oh my God, that's so crazy. Because I had no experience with any NA, AA, CA, I didn't know anything about that. I think they may have had a clubhouse in St. George where I grew up, and I remember going in there was smoke, and I thought that was really cool. And so I sat on my hands for the next 6 months because I was out of ideas. I knew that clearly what I was doing wasn't working, and I was terrified of what was happening. And I knew that something needed to change, but I didn't know how to fix it. I had done thousands of hours of talk therapy, and I would try to get to the place of where I could get the therapist to tell me their problems, and then I knew that I had arrived. I was like, well, this is over because I can't do anything with them anymore. God, must I do everything? Just so sick. I'm so sick, you guys. Keep coming back. Anyway, so I sat on my hands. I had done all this therapy. I had done the religious stuff. I had done the men's stuff, and I just was out of options. I remember the person that was helping me with my boys came to me and was like, I can't help you anymore. And she left out of my life, and I just was I was suddenly alone with these boys and in this dark, deep pit of despair. I had no way to fix what was going on the inside of me, and I had no idea what was wrong. Why didn't this stuff work? I had tried so many different things to help, And I got, from June when I got pulled over until December, and I asked for that one more prescription, and on Christmas Eve, and my kid couldn't wake me up for Christmas morning. And somehow my mom got there, and her mom also was known to not wake up for things like that. And she tried to wake me up and couldn't. The first thing I remember on Christmas morning was my brother grabbing me out of my bed and just saying, get your shit together right now. And I think I have one photo from that Christmas, I didn't know what to do. I didn't realize at the time that I had gone so far and did not want to be here. I couldn't speak the words to that yet, and not for a while. I think I was probably at least a year sober before I realized that I didn't want to live. Those boys are beautiful, and that wasn't enough for me, you know. I couldn't get myself out of the bed. I couldn't do the mom stuff. I couldn't do it. And my aunt happened to be working at a rehab at the time, and the next day, I was hiding in my bed, and my mom was taking care of my kids, and she must have left the front door unlocked, because all of a sudden, there's this bright light in my room. All I remember is like she looked like she was coming out of the sky, because she was just like, whoa! You know, it's like bright light everywhere, and you're just like, oh, I'm in the pit of my despair, you know. And she's like, I want you to come out into your living room. I have some people that want to talk to you. And she had planned, she had some other women from the rehab come in that looked just like me and had kids just like me. And they did an intervention. I didn't know what that was. And they did an intervention. And then all of a sudden, my mom and my 2 aunts were there, and my sister was there. And they were all telling me that I needed to get help, and I was terrified. In that moment, I knew something needed to change, and but I didn't know how that would look. I have this really demanding child that requires a lot, and still to this day, you know, and I was like, I can't just leave him with somebody, but there was something in that moment that I don't even remember what they said. They were all looking at me, and it was very uncomfortable, but I was like, I knew something in me needed to, like, say yes, and I said yes. And I went to rehab, and I remember actually as I was leaving my house, I was like, I don't bring my pills, like I don't bring them with me. And I'm walking past, and I'm having like a physical reaction to my bestie as I'm leaving, because that's the thing that has saved me in all those dark nights of the soul. And I had a lot of dark nights of the soul. My head gets very heavy. And I had that physical reaction on my way into rehab, and I did not belong in rehab. Jesus. This was way overdoing it. I got there and I was like, I've clearly made a mistake. I'm not like you people. I don't belong here. And I actually felt like that the whole year I stayed sober, because I had to prove to AA that I could do this thing. But I'm clearly not an alcoholic. I like pills. That's my problem. So I just was really full of it when I got here. And I remember that first meeting, they told us to that we were going to go to an AA meeting. I had never been to an AA meeting. And we show up at the meeting in the druggy buggy. And we all file in, and I'm writing notes with the boys, and and not paying attention at all. And there was a woman in a purple coat that started to share. I don't know her name. I don't know what she said. But something that she said just resonated with me. And I just was like, what is this? Like, I had only experienced religious stuff, and I had had some experiences, but I was like, this is weird. Like, what is happening? Like, what is this place, you know? And how is it like they're all sitting around and swearing and having coffee and having this spirit? Like, that was very confronting for me, because I had really solid ideas of what I thought the spirituality looked like. And that kept me out of here for a while. I got sober for that year, and then I called a boyfriend, and he brought some wine, and we got drunk. And I stayed out. That whole year I was sober, men would come up to me, like the old dudes in my home group would come up to me and be like, how are you doing? Like we do around here. And I just wanted to scream at them, because I was like, can't you see how I'm doing? Like, I'm not doing well. Like, this is not going well. And I couldn't voice that stuff, you know? Like, I was just like, fine, I'm fine, you know? And then I just slowly kept backing out of the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, you know? It did not take me long to just turn back to the men, to the drug, be off. And I feel very lucky to be here. because we don't all get here, and we don't all get to have this kind of experience that we get to have if we stick around and try a few things that are very uncomfortable and that I don't quite honestly believe in. I was really mad about God when I saw God on the wall when I got here in that first meeting. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I cannot get rid of this dude. Like, I was so annoyed. I was like, God, like, I thought they came to AA to be anonymously drinking, you know? Like, doesn't that make more sense? Like, God, fuck you. I was very angry. He gave me a sick kid and terrible ex-husbands, you know, it's all their fault, you know. Oh, man. And I had this really sweet neighbor. You know, I've had a lot of, like, healing times here. I got drunk here and I got sober here, all here. And there's something to say about being in the land that you made the mess in and having to face people that you would rather not face. And the man that helped me was of the local religion, and I had such animosity to that because it didn't work for me. I knew it didn't work for me, and I had tried really hard, you know. I had these rigid lines. It reminds me of that. If this was a code of moral ethics and values, we would all have gotten sober a long time ago. That's when I knew I was sick. And this man, he lived across the street from me, and he saved my life. He came over, it was again 9 a.m. I don't know what it is about me in the mornings, but he showed up at my door with his 2 high pants on, with his braided belt and his plaid shirt and his glasses, and I just was like, opened the door and I was like, you gotta be kidding me, this is who, like, you're sending to help me, you know? And I didn't even realize what was happening, and he's like, you look tired, you should go lay down, and I listened. And, you know, probably saved my kid's life again that day, because I think I was taking somebody to school or something, and I called that old sponsor, and thank God I have to put a plug in for this woman, because I walked into the palace. I didn't know which door was the right door to go into after I got out of the druggy-buggy situation, and I walked up, and I was terrified to go in the doors, and I walked in, and I was shaking, and she could tell I was new, and she was like there with a rehab, and she's like, oh, you should come sit by me. You know, it was something so simple as that. I was so terrified, and she asked me to come sit with her, and then she gave me her phone number and told me to call her. And those are the simple, tiny things that we do here that I forget to do that save people's lives. You know, like, I wanted to walk back out that door, and I probably wouldn't have stayed here. And I called that woman and said, I need help. And I got here. I met her she had me meet her at a meeting, and then I got another sponsor a little bit later, and I followed her around, and she kept sharing this story about how she used to take her dog's doggy downer. I'd go listen to her speak. She'd share about her dog's doggy downers that she took for her first year of recovery. And I just was like, that's great. And then I realized, like, oh my God, I'm like using my brother's prescription, and I'm trading mine for his. Like, I don't know if that's sober. So I changed my date. So now I have the August 15th date, and I can never remember what year, except for this year, because it's 7 + 7 is 14, so that's helpful. Shut up, Brantley. It's not easy to stay here with the heads that we have. I was right back at that 9-month mark. I thought it was long enough that I waited to not date, and I decided to start dating again. And then I saw this woman speak. She was just sharing in a meeting, actually, and she had a cool shirt, and I was like, oh, I need to go talk to her. And she had a cool accent, and when I asked her to help me, she suggested the no dating thing, and I was just like, but this is the love of my life, you know? I met him here, and I kicked his work boot, and, like, it was, you know, off to the races. And she suggested not dating, and I felt it again. All these things that come with the truth, I just feel right here in the center that I know there's something there. I might not be able to tell you, and I might not understand it in the moment, but I knew I needed to not date, and I broke up with that boyfriend, and you know, it takes, like I said, I'm a slow learner. So there was a man naked in my bed probably like a week later after I had told her this was the love of my life. And in that moment was when I was like, oh my God, like I have a problem, like it just takes what it takes for us to get here. There was another thing that she suggested. She made really hard suggestions, Don't date. It's like, God, it's 9 months. That's long enough. And she told me to go home to my boys. She suggested 3 meetings a week and to go home with my boys. I remember exactly where I was at. I was in Provo down by the Maggleby's Fresh or whatever. I remember exactly where I was parked on the side of the road before I was pulling in to go to work, and I started to cry because I did not know how to take care of these kids. Like, I've just told you how I took care of my kids. I didn't. Like, those kids should have been taken from me a long time ago, and I thank the Lord that they were not. Maybe. But she told me to go home and spend time with my kids, and I cried. And I remember going to her house for the first time, and her kids were around the same ages as some of mine, and they were laughing and having a good time. And I remember going home from her house and just being like devastated because I knew that would never be my life. Like, I just was like, I don't know how you've done that, but like, that's not going to work for me. And the truth is, I did. I went home, I took that suggestion. I tried just doing 3 meetings a week. Sometimes it was only 2 meetings a week. And I just love the moms of AA. I just love the moms of AA. I have ran out of meetings because I was so embarrassed to have my kid making noises, because he makes noises and he screams and he's loud, and I'm like sweating because I know everybody's looking at me, and I would just run out of the meeting and people would come get me, and I'm forever grateful for that. He peed through his diaper while we were in the middle of the meeting a couple of times, and I'm sitting there soaked in pee, and I'm just thinking, why am I even here? Like, why am I here? This is ridiculous. And even today, like, I'm like, I need to be all spiritual before I get there. And like, my kid wants to go on a drive. He loves to go on drives, and he loves to blast music. He doesn't speak, and this is his way he speaks. And we drive around town, and we blare the music really loud. I'm probably going to go deaf early. And, that's what he loves to do. And so we go on drives, and I went on a drive this morning, and I'm just getting anxious, and I'm just like, you know what? The thing that I've learned about being here is, like, what matters is that I keep showing up. It doesn't matter how it looks. It never looks the same for any of us. But what I do know is that I need a spiritual solution. Like, that's the only solution for me, and I was horrified that it was God. It doesn't have to be God. If you have an aversion to God, come talk to me. It doesn't matter what it is. It's something outside of ourselves, and I always wanted it to be a human power. I tried having it be my sponsor, and it's very uncomfortable when you do that, because it's just like, they can't fix you. Nothing on earth can fix that darkness that I felt on the insides, the darkness of the soul. Nothing can fix that. But something bigger outside of me and people, people, places, and things. They can't be it. And that has been a really big struggle for me in my journey, really honestly, because I was afraid that God wanted nothing to do with me. And I was afraid, I just am a lot of fear that, like, maybe he doesn't want anything to do with me. But then when I write that stuff out, I'm like, out of all the people that exist, just you, like, that's not real. Some days my head feels like it's 1,000 pounds and that I'm pulling it along just to get by. And in fact, I've just been thinking about, I'm kind of all over the place with the recovery part, because it's uncomfortable to talk about, because I want to be honest and raw with how it has been going for me, because it is really hard to stay in these seats. And it was really uncomfortable when I got here. I had to do this. I stopped the dating thing. And I have to tell you, that has been such a joy to go home to my kids. She suggested watching funny videos. We started watching funny videos. We started laughing together. I still remember the first movie we watched together that was funny, and I can't even remember what it's called right now. I'll think of it later. But we started having laughter in my house. And my kid got older, and he he got in trouble when he was like 12 or 13 at school. And all of a sudden I have a cop in my living room reading him his Miranda rights. And I'm just sitting there going, what is going on? I'm like 2 years sober, and I'm just like, I don't know what to do here. And I just was like, horrified, like what? It was such a good moment in my life with my boys, because it was God allowed me those 2 years to get my feet underneath me. And then he had that happen with my kid, and I was able to bring my kids right here in front of me, and I was able to walk with him with that stuff. I called my sponsor, and I was crying because I'm like a single woman trying to raise these kids, trying to work at the same time, and they expelled him from school. And I'm like, where the crap is this kid supposed to go? He's like 12 or 13, and I'm like, I can't miss work. Like, I have to pay, I was just like, what am I supposed to do with this kid? And my boss let him come, and he would sit in the freaking break room and read Harry Potter. And then he came and he worked for people in this room, and it was just such a shift. I thought that, to fix the family would look so different. I did not think that it would be an officer in my living room reading my kid his Miranda rights, and then having to figure out how the crap am I supposed to get this kid to X, Y, and Z. I have these beautiful voicemails from all those years ago that I haven't deleted, because he's getting from each spot, because we finally got a little system going where he would go to the gym, then he'd ride the bus, and he'd go to whatever that special school is where they send the kids that get in trouble. And he would call me. And he would leave me voicemails to let me know that he got where he was supposed to go. And things started changing. Things started changing. I didn't know what to do, and I still don't know what to do a lot of the time. But I have a lot of you here to talk through this stuff that's uncomfortable. There's been so many times where it's really late at night, and I'm like, that little effort's not even freaking home yet, And I'm tired, I decided to do school. It was a really terrible decision, and it's very complex. And he would just stay out, and I would just be like, freaking the F out, I'm like, God, doesn't he know that I'm tired and I want to go to bed? And he's like, just go to bed, Mom. I'm like, really? But the beauty of that was that I kept showing up for that stuff in the house. And there wasn't men coming in and out of my house. And then I got to walk him through the stuff that the first girlfriend, the first sexual experience, all this stuff that was which was really scary for me. And thank God I was at a retreat at the time with all of my sobriety family. When I found out my kid was having sex, I was like, what? I don't know how to do this. I was a really good teenager. I was not in my 20s, but God, he was a naughty teenager. He was not a naughty teenager. He's a very nice kid. He played football, and we would go. He and I made up this secret handshake, and after he would play Friday night football, he didn't care about anything else. He wanted to meet me at the side, and he wanted us to do our little handshake, and his friends would want to see it, And that stuff gets me so emotional, because I'm just to go from what I was, selling myself so short and just being so embarrassed of who I am, to that, my life has completely changed, The not dating thing really gave me the opportunity to see Jess for Jess. And even again, as I'm in this new phase of my life, my youngest one just graduated from high school, and he didn't have a kid during high school. That's a feat. I'm just really glad that we do this thing together. We get to be happy, joyous, and free, they say. And one of my favorite speakers was like, those are the only cards that are dealt to us. We get to be happy, joyous, and free. If you have resentment, it's not happy, joyous, and free. Sorry. It is not that easy. I just had something happen at work, because this is how it goes for me before I speak. Stuff tends to happen that reminds me, and the girl at work was being a jerk, I thought, and I have to be very careful with that stuff. And so my way now is I call my friend, and I'm just like, I just need just a second. I just need to ask you, does this sound weird? And I run stuff by people because my head has always been the problem. It was never the drugs. It was never the sex. It was never the alcohol. That was always my solution. My problem has always been Jess. Always, since I was that little girl, It has not mattered what I thought about God, and that I still don't know what God is. I find peace in you guys. I find peace in the mountains. One of my favorite things to do is to escape into the mountains and feel just that complete bliss. Even that storm today where it was just so loud and mean and crackling, I love that stuff. And it hasn't mattered that I don't believe in something. I know there's something, and I'm starting to trust that maybe Jess is okay. It's such an exciting part of my journey because I've never been okay. I saw somebody last night that I used to work with, and I was like, immediately, for me, this is what my alcoholism looks like. I give him a hug, I give his family a hug, and then I sit there and I just think, you're such a piece of shit. You're never going to make it. Where am I trying to go, God? To the parade. And I have never gone there. But I saw him, and that's what my alcoholism looks like for me, is it goes down these grooves of just the same old crap that I've told myself for years and years and years. And I just kept praying, because usually what I'll do is I'll go eat food and abuse my body, or, do stuff to make me feel punished for the terrible person that I am, because I saw somebody. That is how sensitive I get. It's embarrassing to say, but what's exciting about it is that there was a moment last night that I realized, actually, maybe they're just people, and maybe you're just people too. And I need, it was just such a, tiny bit of a shift. And what I'm trying to learn right now is, not to pick that stuff up and whip myself with it, because I want to just sit and whip myself for whatever I think that is the problem of Jess, There was something else I was going to tell you guys, but I can't remember right now. I'm just really, really glad that I got to share my story. If you're new, I hope you come back. I hope you hear something, even if it's nothing that I'm saying, but that you feel something, because this has changed my life. I cannot believe that I'm chasing dreams that I wanted to chase. That is insane to me. And that I'm passing the classes. That's crazy. I had nightmares that I was going to get up here and be like, I failed school. And I just passed another semester. It's just so wild. This has just been such a big journey and a big life. And I think it's just getting started. And I was dry as F before I did this talk. And I'm so glad that I got to do it, because don't throw any matches up here. I might still light on fire. But the beautiful part about AA is it doesn't matter what it looks like. You just keep doing it. And it shifts and changes. And I'm in a shifting right now, I'm starting to learn that I might be okay, and there might be something that does have my best interest at heart. And I'm really glad for the people that showed up for me tonight. I'm one of many, and that feels like a really good place to be. So thank you so much for letting me share.